The airport buzzed with voices, rolling luggage, and the occasional overhead announcement. Among the crowd, Amara Daniels, a 26-year-old black woman with a calm, professional demeanor, moved quietly but confidently toward her gate, dressed in a simple blazer, sneakers, and jeans, with her laptop bag across her shoulder. She looked like any other traveler on a business trip. It was her first time flying overseas. London to New York. She had worked hard for this opportunity. A scholarship had brought her from a small town in Nigeria to a top university in the UK. Now, a prestigious tech company had invited her to speak at a youth summit in Manhattan. She wasn't just traveling, she was making history for herself. As she neared the security check, she offered her passport and boarding pass with a small smile. The officer, a tall white man with a stiff jaw and unreadable eyes, took one look at her, then at the passport, then back again. His eyebrows furrowed. "Step aside, Ms.," he said, signaling to another officer. Amara blinked. "Is something wrong?" "Just a routine check," the second officer said, already reaching for her bag. "Please come with us." Her heart began to pound. She glanced around. The people behind her, in line white, mostly were being waved through. A teenage boy in front of her, who had joked with the officer, had barely been looked at. But Amara, she was being pulled aside without explanation, inside a glass-walled room. She was made to sit while officers searched her bags in front of her. They asked her questions, too many questions. Why are you flying to New York? How long will you stay? Who paid for your ticket? Are you carrying any cash? Each answer she gave was met with narrowed eyes and scribbled notes. She could feel her chest tighten, her hands beginning to tremble, but she kept her head high. "I'm a speaker," she said, "at the Youth Tech Leaders Summit. Here's the letter." They barely looked at the printed invitation before flipping through her notebook, opening her folders, even shaking out her shoes. Minutes passed, then half an hour. She saw the time of her boarding come closer. She had done nothing wrong, yet was being treated like a suspect. One officer whispered to another, and they left the room. She sat alone, the noise of the airport muffled beyond the glass. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away. She would not cry here. She remembered her mother's voice back home. "When they doubt you, don't shout. Stand tall. Make them regret ever questioning you." That's when a third officer entered. A woman, black, like her. Her badge read Officer Renee Matthews. The woman looked at her. Their eyes met. Something silent passed between them, recognition, understanding. Officer Matthews picked up the file and the summit invitation. She read carefully. Then she looked at Amara. "Has anyone called your company? Verified your story?" The officer asked the others. No one answered. Did anyone even look her up online? She's a published software developer. Her keynote is being streamed. What are we doing here? Silence. Then she turned to Amara, voice softer. "I'm sorry. I'm fixing this." Officer Renee Matthews wasted no time. She stepped out of the glass-walled room with the file in hand, leaving Amara seated behind the transparent barrier like she was on display. The airport buzzed on outside, untouched by what was happening inside. Amara sat up straight, fighting to keep her emotions in check. Her fingers twisted the strap of her laptop bag. One part of her wanted to scream. Another part just wanted to leave and forget this moment ever happened. But deeper inside, something began to rise, not anger, but strength. Meanwhile, Officer Matthews marched up to the desk. where two of her fellow officers stood, both of whom had interrogated Amara. You two searched her, questioned her, delayed her based on what? A hunch? Renee demanded, her voice low but cutting like a knife. The taller officer, the one who had first pulled Amara aside, shifted uncomfortably. We're trained to spot inconsistencies. Her ticket looked what? Paid for, printed, legitimate. Renee cut in. Did you even Google her name? One search and you'd find her LinkedIn, her company profile, her video interview on BBC last month. You wasted her time, you humiliated her, and you almost made her miss her flight. They didn't answer. Their silence was loud. Renee walked back into the room and closed the door behind her. She exhaled, trying to calm her own pulse. Amara's eyes met hers, again still alert, still questioning. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Renee said sincerely. There's no excuse. But we're not all like them. Amara nodded slowly. I know. I've cleared you. You can board in 10 minutes. I'll walk you to your gate myself. Amara rose, gripping her bag. Thank you for stepping in. As they walked through the terminal together, something strange happened. People stared, not because of Amara's skin this time, but because a senior officer in uniform was walking beside her like a personal escort. In those moments, the power dynamic flipped. Whispers followed them, but Amara kept her eyes forward. Halfway there, Renee asked, have you ever spoken publicly about things like this? Racism, profiling. Amara sighed. Not really. I didn't want that to be my identity. I wanted to be known for my work. Then maybe it's time to be known for both, Renee said. They reached the gate just as final boarding was announced. Amara turned to her. Thank you for seeing me, for speaking up when no one else did. You're going to change things, Renee said. You already are. Don't stay quiet about this. Amara nodded. Her hands no longer trembled. On the plane, as she settled into her seat, she stared out the window, her reflection staring back at her. She had arrived at the airport, a rising tech leader, but she was leaving something more. A voice, a mirror, a challenge to the silence, and she had a decision to make. Would she let this go, move on quietly, or would she tell the world what happened and why it matters? The plane lifted from the runway with a smooth roar, carrying Amara above the clouds and toward a city she had only seen in movies, New York. But her mind wasn't on skyscrapers or bright lights. It was still in that glass-walled room. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still hear their voices, cold, suspicious, assuming. Her bags being unzipped, her skin being judged, her dignity being questioned. It wasn't just about her. It was about every girl who looked like her, who had ever been made to feel small for being different. But now she had a platform, a summit, a stage, and maybe a responsibility. The moment her flight landed, Amara switched on her phone. Dozens of messages came in, friends wishing her luck, her company's driver confirming pickup, her manager checking in. But her fingers moved past them. She opened the camera. She stared into it. Then she hit record. Her voice was calm, measured, but there was fire behind it. Today I was pulled out of the boarding line at Heathrow Airport, not because I was loud, not because I caused trouble, but because I'm black. I was interrogated, searched, humiliated. My credentials were ignored. My passport was doubted. My body was treated like evidence. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing it because it still happens. And too often, it's swept away in silence. She posted it on Twitter and Instagram with one line, #boarding while. Within the hour, her post was shared over 12,000 times. Within the day, it hit the front page of Black Twitter and LinkedIn. By the time she stood behind the podium at the Youth Tech Leaders Summit, she was no longer just a guest speaker. She was a headline. The crowd was packed. Phones were up. Reporters had shown up uninvited. Her talk was about AI and ethics, but she started with a different story. Before I talk about technology, let me talk about humanity. I was stopped at the airport 2 days ago, not because I'm dangerous, but because someone thought my face didn't fit my passport. And I wondered, if someone who's educated, documented, invited me can be treated like that, what about the ones who aren't? Silence filled the room. Then came applause, slow, building until it roared. Her manager congratulated her backstage. Tech companies emailed her within the hour. One asked her to write an op-ed. Another wanted to sponsor a talk series. But the most powerful message came from someone unexpected. Officer Renee Matthews, I saw your post. I saw your speech. I've been fighting from the inside for years. You reminded me why I started. Keep going. Amara sat alone in her hotel room that night, the city lights flickering against the windows. The pain of the experience hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed. She hadn't stayed silent. She had turned her story into a megaphone, and now people were listening. It didn't take long for the backlash to begin. Just 2 days after Amara's speech went viral, comments flooded her inbox, not all of them kind. You're overreacting. Stop playing the race card. Security is just doing their job. You probably looked suspicious. Even worse, a few media outlets twisted her story, calling it a publicity stunt, or accusing her of weaponizing race for attention. And beneath those headlines were comment sections boiling with hate. For a moment, Amara felt the weight of it all. The doubt, the fear, the feeling that maybe she should have stayed quiet. Her fingers hovered over the delete button on her posts. Her heart pounded with the pressure of millions of eyes watching. But then came the messages that mattered. A teenage girl from Atlanta wrote, I was stopped with my dad at the airport last year, and they searched him like he was a criminal. I was too scared to speak out. You gave me courage. A mother from Paris. My daughter showed me your video. She's 10, she asked. Will they stop me too when I grow up? I cried, but I told her, no, because people like Amara are making them stop. And then, one morning, an email from Heathrow Airport itself. A formal apology. An invitation to speak with their senior staff about systemic bias. An offer to help train personnel on racial profiling awareness. Her voice hadn't just echoed. It had shaken walls. Amara flew back to London a week later. This time in business class upgraded by her hosting company. This time, she walked through immigration with ease. This time, people recognized her. One officer nodded respectfully as she passed. Ma'am. At the baggage claim, a young black girl approached her shyly. She couldn't have been more than 16. Are you the lady from the airport story? She asked. Amara smiled. Yes, that's me. You made me feel like I matter, the girl said. Like we matter. Amara's throat tightened. She placed a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. You do matter, she whispered. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Later, Amara met with Heathrow's diversity board. It wasn't a photo op. It wasn't a PR stunt. It was real, uncomfortable conversation. Real promises. Real change. She told them everything. The tone of the questions, the silence of the room, the humiliation. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't hold back. I don't want revenge, she told them. I want better. For the next girl. For the ones who don't go viral. For the ones you never hear about. They listened. Some took notes. Others just sat with it. After the meeting, one senior officer came up to her. We've been needing a mirror, he said. You gave us one. Months passed. What began as a painful airport stop had grown into something Amara never imagined. She wasn't just a tech speaker anymore. She had become a voice, a movement, and for many a symbol of courage. Universities invited her to speak. Non-profits asked her to lead workshops. Airports from other countries reached out for diversity consulting. Even media outlets that once ignored her now wanted her. Thoughts on everything from tech, ethics, to racial justice. But through it all, Amara stayed grounded, because she never forgot why this all began. One quiet afternoon, back in her apartment in London, she sat beside her mother, who had flown in from Nigeria. The older woman watched her daughter, proudly as they scrolled through emails from young black women, travelers, even airport staff, all sharing how her story had changed them. Do you remember what you told me before I left home? Amara asked softly. Her mother smiled. I told you, when they doubt you, don't shout. Stand tall. Amara nodded. You were right. But I also learned sometimes. Standing tall means speaking loud. Her mother reached for her hand, and you spoke for millions. Later that week, Amara received another email from Officer Renee Matthews. Because of your story, we've started rewriting our airport training protocols. They've asked me to lead the Diversity and Fairness Task Force. I've waited 15 years for this door to open. You kicked it down. Thank you. Amara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This wasn't just about one woman being stopped in an airport. This was about centuries of being stopped in boardrooms, classrooms, voting lines, and interviews. It was about being seen, being heard, being believed. Months later, at an international human rights conference in Geneva, Amara stood before a global audience. This time, her topic wasn't just tech. It was systemic change. She told her story, again not as a victim, but as a witness to what courage could do. Was stopped once, but instead of letting it end there, I turned around. I used that moment to hold up a mirror, and that mirror didn't just show them who I was, it showed the world who we are. We are not threats. We are not mistakes. We are brilliance, strength, and future. And we are done being silent. Thunderous applause erupted. She stepped back from the microphone, not as a woman who'd been searched and doubted, but as a woman who had turned injustice into purpose and pain into a path forward for countless others. Amara smiled, not because her journey was easy, but because she chose to walk it with her head high, and from that day forward, every time a black girl passed through an airport line, someone somewhere stood a little straighter, asked a little kinder, and remembered her story. She was stopped because of her skin, but she turned that pain into power, and the world finally listened. Her story isn't just hers. It's a mirror for all of us. Tell me, from where are you watching this story? And what time is there now? If this story moved you, like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories that deserve to be heard.